Africa, and that's how RAPSET was also came into effect. Previously, those people who come from Marsabit, Moyale side, if you were to interview them, they would tell you the hardships that they used to have. What we call the Northern Grid Road. It passes through Moyale, passes through Nairobi, passes through Nanyuki, Isiolo, all the way to Marsabit and Moyale. At that time when Kibaki became president, the road, what we call the Northern Grid Road, up to Moyale, the Ethiopia side was already constructed.
Yeah.
So from Moyale to our side is where the problem was. So you could not link North Africa to Kenya. We were more or less like you are landlocked. And this is what Kibaki thought should be looked into, so that we get a link from Ethiopia by road all the way to Isiolo to Nairobi. So the concept of the Thika superhighway was supposed to be the starting point. And those of us who remember how the Thika road was congested, narrow, and it could not afford to get heavy traffic.
Very good.
So to be able now to link Moyale to Nairobi, it meant that you are increasing traffic. Traffic automatically had to increase. So you start from where the traffic is starting and make sure...
Just a minute. I mean, the traffic has just passed the Muthaiga underpass, and the other significant thing about the Muthaiga underpass is that the president actually used to live less than 2 kilometers from there. So, judging by the speed that they are taking, they have taken about 15 minutes from Lee Funeral Home to Muthaiga roundabout, which actually, a lot of people do not know that Muthaiga used to be a roundabout, right?
Yes.
They have taken about 15 minutes, and that's a distance of about 7 to 8 kilometers. So it's proper to say that I think they are traveling at a speed of about 50 to 55 kilometers an hour.
Maximum 60 thereabout, right?
Maximum 60.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, bearing that in mind that this is a city road, it is not expected that they will breach the 50 kilometers mark set out under the highway code, unless they want to breach that. Well, but I don't think they would want to do that. So it's proper to say that probably maybe they are, they're doing a speed of 50 to 55 kilometers. So it's proper to imagine that, barring no incidents on the road, we expect these entourage to be in Othaya by around 9:30 thereabout.
Absolutely clear, perfect pictures. You can only get here at KBC Channel 1. You can never get this anywhere else. The tracking, the trailing of this convoy snaking its way is 15 minutes past 7, and they're doing perfectly well. Clear pictures, steady pictures. Only at KBC Channel 1, this is the place that you are going to get this until the last moment that President Mwai Kibaki will be laid to rest. And of course, the formation is also amazing, with precision as we spoke about it, O'Brien, because with military, everything has to be in order, and when you ask the engineer, this is quite significant because even President Mwai Kibaki, wherever he is, so to speak, he must be so happy about his achievement, Look at that. Just look at that. It's free-flowing. Probably even the convoy itself is enjoying the drive. Engineer?
Yeah.
Look at that. Well, engineer, I mean, when you see these, this kind of highway, and we must prop our camera people. I mean, they're doing such a brilliant job. I mean, it's not easy, to brace the morning chill and of course give you such kind of beautiful pictures. But when you see this kind of highway, and bearing in mind that you are one of the minds, that conceptualize and conceive this idea, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great. Let me say something that Kibaki used to tell us, that when you are doing your work, when you are giving service to wananchi, don't think about yourself. Just make sure you give service. And let me say, I'm very honored to be here today when the president is taking his final journey through the Thika Superhighway. Yeah. And I'm here in the studio, KBC, talking about the achievements in infrastructure.
And look at that drone shot, man oh man. Why else can you get that?
The issue I was pointing out about linking, the final link for Kenya to Moyale had to start from Nairobi. And the traffic count, of course, as Professor would maybe had pointed out, traffic count has to be done. And you project the years to come. The increase in every development has an increase in traffic. So all that is done statistically and projected so that you can be able to say from the time the superhighway was constructed up to today, was that projection taken care of? And we can say yes, because even up to now you can see the superhighway is still functioning well.
It's still functioning.
Without that projection in the design and planning, you get everything wrong. So that was done. And
the other thing is that you worked closely with Professor Chege?
Professor Chege, you know, when you are in the profession, you know one another and you work together. He knows a lot, and of course he's senior to me. He knows a lot, and there are things that he can say that I might not know, because when I went to politics, some of these things now as an engineer, you become a manager, engineer manager, and you leave some of these things to professors to continue, because they are mentoring the student, the young people, and inculcating to them the real issues. Let me point out that when the design for the Thika Superhighway was done.
Sorry, just to step on your shoes. If the casket is now leaving, that is part of the BRT, the Bus Rapid transport system that is under construction on this highway. It is being undertaken by the Nairobi Metropolitan Authority in a bid to decongest the city. I also know that you are going to discuss this because it was part of your plan. So if you just continue.
Yes. What I was saying is that when there was a transition from the Mwai government to Kibaki government, and there are so many things that were never done. The engineers, more or less, were very idle. So to reactivate the engineers to start now working as engineers was one of the priorities in 2003 that we undertook with the engineer rider, because you were two of us, all that big ministry, roads, public works, and housing. Kibaki had a slim government when he took over, so there was one minister and one assistant minister in that big docket. So the issue we had was, the priority was to get the engineers back on track, to start thinking like engineers and work as engineers, because previously there was a lot of confusion about infrastructure. Nothing was working. So once we did that, then the design proper for our roads started, and we also made sure that we brought on board the consulting engineers, because the work became so much that we could not cope with the engineers in the ministry. So consulting engineers were brought on board to be able to cope with what Kibaki wanted us to do in the ministry. Unlike some of the projects being undertaken today, you find the design and the concept for the superhighway was done by our engineers.
All local engineers.
Everything, yes. Kenyan engineers.
Wow.
And like now we have some Chinese coming It's like turnkey projects. They come with money and with their designs, and you find even our engineers are not getting involved. Everything is in Chinese.
Yeah.
So some of the projects that are being undertaken by Chinese, they have not been designed by our engineers. And I take a lot of exception to that, because that's not the way it should be. Our consulting engineers, you find they're idle, because those projects are the ones that they are supposed to be designing on behalf of the government, on behalf of Kera, Kura, and Kenya. So there is something that we need to change about the way we are undertaking our projects. We have a lot of expertise in infrastructure, and I'm not happy to say that we are not making full use of our engineers, and Professor will attest.
Professor, you want to say something in regard to that?
As a testimony.
I would like to say, coming in from the point of view of an economist, the fact is that, just as Engineer Toro has said, Kenyan engineers were responsible for planning, supervising, judging the management of the construction of the road, Thika Superhighway, by the Chinese. And it's quite right. What is happening at the moment is that we have a fully packaged kind of model which has come where the Chinese design, construct, finance, even in some cases, as you're seeing in this road, actually operating. It's a different model from what President Kibaki has said. Today, Kenyan engineers are involved in the construction of roads in South Africa, London, Rwanda, France, even in places as sophisticated as Hong Kong. Kenyans, our own well-trained Kenyan engineers. Why is it not possible for them to do that work here? We should be asking ourselves that. And it's not just that. We have Kenyan experts in different areas. Let me say, in your own area, communications, working outside the country and doing exceptionally well. We have to pull that talent back here so that we can utilize it for our own economic development. And I believe that this road here, incidentally, the Chinese did not fund this road. It was Kenya government and the African Development Bank.
Yeah, ADB.
African money built Thika Superhighway.
At a cost of 36 billion shillings.
Exactly. And our own engineers designed and supervised it. So I think it's a model in that way.
And it was executed on time?
On time.
Without delays?
Yes, to the satisfaction of Kenyans. Let us use that as a model for the future, please.
Victor, I'm sure you want to say something now in regard to where the team, the entourage is at this point.
Absolutely. If you look at the formation, the speed is relatively high today.
Yeah.
Having in mind that the distance to be covered is slightly longer, but nonetheless, it's 25 minutes past 7 in the AM. It's a chilly morning. I mean, it's quite amazing to see how the military is taking care of this situation. Look at Thika Road. The shots are amazing. And as Ayla said, this is where you're going to get a full, clear picture on what's happening. Of course, as we said earlier, we have our cameras and our reporters on the ground to give us a feel and sound of what's happening. Probably
that's Kenyatta University in the background. Then after that, they will be entering the Roiro area, and then after that to
speed bump, slow down.
Speed bump?
Slow down. You're not in a hurry to learn. You know, they're saying that
those are the things that should not be there.
Yeah,
the speed bumps, eh?
Yeah.
I know this has been an ongoing issue, and I remember at some point, I think it was in 2018, there about the High Court ruled that you're not supposed to be having the bumps, you know, on a super highway. But they were never there before. What thing?
No, initially they were not there. No.
But why? Why
then do you need to have
So when an accident appears, then they demand that they have speed bumps to slow traffic. So it started with 1, then 2, then they continued increasing.
But ideally, it shouldn't be there.
There should be no bumps.
You should not be having on a highway, you know, of this magnitude. But I also want to hear from Professor Shege. You are here, and I also know you were here, Engineer Toro, back in 1978 when President, the founding president of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, was also being laid to rest, you know, at Parliament buildings. Of course, the distance was not as long as this one, but is there anything different from what we are seeing today?
I would say that it's like night and day. At that time, Kenya had 15 million people. We're not talking close to 50 million. Nairobi was 500,000 people then.
500,000 people?
Yes, it was a small town compared to the big city we have now. Past Kenyatta University College, as it was then, plain, undeveloped land, right up to get to Thika. So we are seeing a very different country today, and much more developed, and I think much more prosperous than we were in 1978, but many more people. At that time, what I recall coming from State House,
sorry for stepping on your shoes, but let's first of all,
and probably if you can
bring
see, Brian, actually they have reduced the speed. Yeah. That must be intentional because
because you have a lot of people here lining up.
They've lined up to, you know, to pay their last respect. Remember, most people did not even have time to view the body, so they have slowed down, so to speak, perhaps intentionally.
And this is because we're also approaching Ruiru, right?
Right.
Where you expect to see a lot of people. Yeah, and this is what you expect to see, you know, along the highway, whereby if you have, you know, a significant number of public, you know, lining up to view the body, I mean, it is just courteous, you know, for them to slow down so that people can salute, you know, bow, and of course, bid the president farewell. I think this is something that happens, you know, all over the world. Yeah, sorry, you were saying, let's bring in a professor. You are trying to compare what we are saying today with what was happening in 1978. I mean, I was not there, so you can only inform me.
At that time, we had Voice of Kenya, which is where we are now. Television, black and white, used to be available to the public to view from 5 in the evening till 10.
From 5 p.m. to 10?
Yes, black and white.
Wow.
We liked it. That's all we had, by the way. There was nothing else.
And it was black and white?
Yes. And the fact is that that's all we had. The fact is that it had to be announced to the public there's going to be special viewing when President Kenyatta died. So you can tune on your TV and watch it. Because normally you wouldn't switch on your TV in the morning.
Because you knew it was off.
It was off. There was nothing to say. So we did watch it. I remember school children, it was holidays. Everybody watched it. It was a moment of great sadness as well, I must say, and solemnness as well. International attention was paid to that particular funeral because this is somebody who was known internationally for his role in African nationalism. In the rest of Africa and in the West, in the Western world. So it was different in that way, smaller, TV, black and white, but also I remember the solemnity and the sadness which enveloped the country then. But also I think the hope at that time that we had made the transition and made it peacefully. We established a tradition as a country that we should be proud of, that we're moving from one presidency to another now, the fifth one, and each transition has been peaceful.
And that was during a time when, you know, there used to be a lot of coup d'etats in Africa, and, you know, there used to be a lot of power struggles.
Absolutely. I would say if you look in 78, half of Africa would be under military rule. Yeah. Even a lot of our countries in our neighborhood here, Eastern and Southern Africa. The fact is that Kenya has held together. And Kenyans right to run themselves down and speak about their problems, and we should, but we should also look at the positive side as well. The fact is, as you're saying, at that time, political instability was what defined Africa. Kenya was the exception. We're still an exception, and we hope to continue that way.
This is a case of, you know, focusing more on the hole in the donut instead of focusing on the other parts of the donut.
Exactly.
Engineer Toro, I know back then when when the President Kenyatta was being laid to rest around Parliament buildings. I think you were 25 years back then?
Yeah, I had just left university and I joined Kenya Railways.
Yeah.
And
it used to be called East African
Railways and Harbors.
Railways and Harbors, yeah.
The only difference now is because Jomo Kenyatta died in office.
Yeah.
Unlike now, where Kibaki or Moi 2 years ago, they have passed when they are already former presidents. So the serenity when Kenyatta died was different from now.
Yeah.
Because one, people did not believe that Kenyatta would die. So it was a shock.
Sorry, I mean, it's good to explain what is that. That is the toll station. It used to be called the toll station area because I come from those sides. When I was growing up and we used to come to the city, you'd stop there, you pay for entering the city, and we used to pay 10 shillings back then, which was a lot of money.
Yes.
Was it 10 shillings or 1 shilling? No. I mean, I used to see people giving 10 shillings. I can't remember whether they used to get any change for that, but that was a toll station, a concept that is no longer with us, but Parliament is now to bring back that whole concept. Look at those bumps as you were talking about. And of course a zebra crossing, my goodness. Why would you have a zebra crossing on a national highway?
It shouldn't be there, as engineers say.
It should have been there.
It should be there.
Okay, all right, take us back to 1978.
So 78, it was different and people did not believe that. You remember, maybe you have read when the then Attorney General Charles Jonjo had said that anybody who can even imagine that Kenyatta can die is treason. So nobody would talk about Jomo Kenyatta dying. So when it finally happened, it was a shock.
Yeah.
And because of the way KBC used to work, when it was now being announced, music is the one that came, and then you start wondering, why is KBC playing this music continuously?
Back then it was VOK. Voice of Kenya.
Voice of Kenya, VOK, until it was announced, and people were in shock.
Yeah.
And people stopped working. I remember people just went home. People would not talk to anybody. They just kept quiet.
The whole country was in shock.
The whole country was in shock. What is all the mentioning is the transition, very peaceful, and there was no issue of even the military thinking that they can take over because Kenyatta has died. So that transition, as the professor is saying, has gone on very well with us. There were those few instances where 1971, where there was some rumor that there was attempted coup, then came later 82. But you can see, you can say our
that was 4 years later.
Yeah, our defense forces, they have behaved very well. They have behaved in a very professional way. They have not been greedy to take over power, and they have allowed civilian government to continue. And the institutions that are led by the government and safeguarded are the ones which give satisfaction to the people. So the armed forces, being satisfied with the role they are playing, and the president being able to inculcate the value of professionalism in the armed forces, would make them content, and they are not greedy for power.
Yeah.
So we have gone that far. We have come this far. And you can see the honor that the defense force is giving our lead president. Very articulate, very committed, with a lot of honor and humility. It means that as their commander-in-chief, they valued his contribution, they valued what he did for them, and how he took care of them, that all of them were satisfied. The other issue is institutions should take care of succession. If succession is done properly within the forces, and there is no witch hunting, seniority takes place, then nobody gets frustrated. You are not a brigadier and somebody comes from captain and becomes your boss. So that seniority is the one that gives job satisfaction, that yes, the person who has been promoted is better than me or deserves that promotion. So everybody becomes satisfied. So we have come very far from that time. And those who were there when Jomo Kenyatta died, if you compare the funeral service for Jomo Kenyatta and the one that is happening for Mwai Kibaki, they are more or less about the same.
More or less the same. In terms of
organization, the defense forces taking control of everything, and you find that the respect that was accorded to President Mwai Kibaki by the defense forces is shown by the way they are treating him and this function. So I think Kibaki, as president and commander-in-chief, is something that everybody is proud of.
I mean, you see, to us, this is what we would say, Nikama Ndrama, Nikama Vindio, right? Because me and Victor, were you there back then? Of course you were not. You don't.
1978.
1978, were you there?
Only the prof and the engineer were there. That's why they are able to give us a story. Prof, just to ask you, perhaps somebody would argue that, Kenyans should wait for a longer period of time before we start feeling the real effect of President Mwai Kibaki's hand in government, probably in 50 years to come?
I think you're absolutely right, because the impact of his work in economic planning is one that had a long-term perspective. We had Kenya Vision 2030, and he urged us, as soon as economic recovery was underway, planning ministry then under Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, you've done 3 years of recovery. Give me a perspective of our country for 2030.
Yes.
He always was very forward-looking in economic planning. Right from the beginning, he and Mutembei captained our development plans right after independence. His perspective was always of a united Kenya on a long-term perspective, and you could see our population was going to grow.
Yes.
We needed employment, we needed jobs, industrialization was important, and that's why you see something we haven't talked about a lot, Dongo Kundu, the bypass
in Mombasa,
Mazeras down to the south coast, and a duty-free manufacturing city in Dongo Kundu. All these were part of what was going to absorb into employment our young people. Konza City. And incidentally, let me say, because you talked about this highway, the toll road, the Nairobi toll road, from Machakos town of Tulimuru, which engineer is talking about, it was supposed to link with Thika superhighway at the same time. The World Bank was supposed to provide us funding for that, for this to, at that time, like you're talking about 206, 205.
That was 206.
They dropped the ball. They let us down. On the last minute, Engineer Michael Kamau was PS
for roads.
I remember very well. They said we're not going to do it because the contractor, who was Austrian, Strabag, have been associated with corruption in Russia. What did we have to do with Russia or Austria or Strabag? That is what delayed this construction. They're supposed to meet here where we are now as early as maybe 10, 15 years ago. So that then we have this east-west connection to the north-south.
So whatever we're seeing right now, the double-decker road along Uru Highway is a continuation of Thika Highway?
Yeah, they're supposed to blend so that you're coming from this direction to this direction. You don't have to go downtown and cause congestion.
Right. I mean, it was such you know, a lot of people say that, you know, the decision by the World Bank, you know, was politically motivated because, you know, Strabag was blacklisted, you know, by World Bank, but that was in Russia, as you were saying. But this was a project that was taking place, you know, thousands and thousands of miles away. I mean, so when the World Bank dropped the news that we are not going to fund this project, so how was that a setback, you know, to President Kibaki's plans?
I can comment on that because I was there. That's the time you are having that concept. And, well, collection. Yeah. By then, Engineer Kamau was not the PS.
Okay.
Engineer Kamau became PS later on, 2008. Now, when the...
Ikiara was the PS? Or who was the PS?
There was, first of all, there was Ikiara, there was Nani, Mongera, and then Ambassador Mohammed.
Erastus Mongera.
Yeah, so Kamau took over from Ambassador Mohammed.
Oh, that's right.
When Ambassador went to contest. That was 2008. Now, when our engineers, as I said, our engineers started working in 2003. And Kibaki said these are the issues that the engineers should work on. The expressway, it was not, the way it is designed now is not how it was designed. By then it was a concept to be undertaken by the World Bank, the expressway and the Southern Bypass. The two of them were supposed to be the same. It was not, it was starting from Cabanas. Just after airport, there around the airport, it was not extending beyond the airport. Then it was to come and take traffic was to bypass, to come through Southern Bypass, and the other one expressway up to just past Westlands. Now, when the expression of interest was threatened, and Strabag became the winner. Then they were blacklisted as by World Bank. So World Bank said no. So there was that long gap of financing. Now the World Bank said they are not going to finance. And then what happened is quickly we said that Southern Bypass had to be done, even without the expressway. Because now Uhuru Highway was getting very congested. So that's how the Chinese funded the Southern Bypass. The Southern Bypass, the way it is not the way we had conceptualized it that time. It was supposed to be. It was not supposed to be dual carriageway.
Oh,
it was not. Even the planning with the World Bank, it was not dual carriageway.
It was a single lane.
It was single lane. Even the expressway, it was just 2 lanes, not the way it is now. It's expanded now.
It's much bigger than it was.
Much bigger. And the budget then, I can convenience, it was about 2 billion.
2 billion shillings.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Back then, of course.
Back then, it was a lot of money.
But you know, factor in inflation and all that. So today would be about 18 billion shillings.
Yeah, you know, with now, as Professor has said, with now the Chinese coming and giving all the money and and the design and whatever, we are not in control.
They are the ones in control.
So if you asked me, the express.
Just a minute, Victor. Do you want to comment about where the entourage is now at this point? Because I can see that is Blue Post.
Yes.
That's where actually that's where the Thika Superhighway ends. From there, this is now. What do you call this, by the way? This is what do you call this? This is Nyeri Highway, or I have never understood what you call this. Is this Nyeri Highway now? Because this is next to Del Monte now, right?
Right.
Does it have a name?
This Del Monte. They're doing pretty well. 45 minutes there. 7:45. They've done. Actually, they are just after Thika, slightly after Thika town.
Yeah.
And they're doing pretty well in terms of the speed and what have you. Now look at the Wananchi. People have now come out. Actually, it's like people are now realizing that, oh, there's something happening out here, so they're coming out.
Yeah.
You know, and being a Saturday, that is Blue Post. You're right, where the Thika Superhighway ended or started coming towards this side of Nairobi. They're doing a good job so far. And
no, actually, it's good to confirm that now they have entered Murang'a County.
Murang'a County.
This is Murang'a County now. Because on your left, that is where you're having the expansive Del Monte pineapple farms.
Yeah.
And so I think in the next 10 minutes or so, they should be now at Keno, where I think I'm not very sure whether they are going to go straight or they're going to turn off to that Murang'a town. Do you think, how are they likely to go? Do you have any idea?
No, they have taken care. I cannot say for